My name is Ashley. Thank you all for joining me today. I am an educator from the California Science Center. And you might notice in the background there's some breathing. And we'll actually explain what their breathing is coming from in a little bit. So, I am an educator from the California Science Center. The California Science Center is a nonprofit organization that is completely free to visit. So, where exactly can you find us? Let's take a look at the map really quickly. If you take a look at the map right here, you can find the California Science Center in an area known as Exposition Park within the city of Los Angeles. And Exposition Park is a really big place with museums, entertainment venues, sports facilities. So it can get a little bit confusing when you come to visit us, or if you choose to. So let me show you what it looks like from the outside so that if you come to visit, you can kind of get a general idea of where to head to. So let's take a look at that building now. So here we are looking at the picture of the California Science Center. So this is what our museum looks like from the outside. So you can see we are a pretty big facility with lots of different topics to explore inside. But today we are actually going to be checking out one of my favorite places, and that place is known as the Kelp Forest. And there, as you can see in our camera, is where that breathing sound is coming from. And that is our scuba diver. I'm going to turn it over to our scuba diver for them to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here inside our Kelp Forest tank today. Glad to have you guys on board.
Awesome. So Leroy is here inside of our beautiful kelp forest to answer any questions you might have about animals you might see swimming around, Leroy, or you might be interested to know what Leroy is wearing, what equipment he has on. So feel free to start submitting your questions in the chat, and I will be passing that on to Leroy for all of you. Now, Leroy, we briefly mentioned that the area you're in is called a kelp forest. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what a kelp forest is?
Absolutely, Ashley. The Kelp Forest is an ecosystem found in Southern California and many parts around the world that are very similar to an underwater forest, similar like you would find on land. So, kelp is a giant algae that grows off of our shore, and it is home to many, many animals. So it is an ecosystem that is just absolutely beautiful, home to many different species, and we are one of the only few aquariums to actually house this kelp inside captivity. So it allows you to see what the scuba diver might see if you were to go scuba diving off of our shore here.
Yeah, and we are fortunate to offer everyone the chance to get a glimpse into an underwater kelp forest. And as you heard Leroy mention, this is all real kelp. And so we have one of our audience, our scientists from the audience is wondering how many animals live in the kelp forest?
There are hundreds of animals that live inside of a kelp forest in the wild. Here inside our exhibit, we have about 40 different species and about 400 individual animals. You can see right in front of me there was a leopard shark that just swam by, which is one of the beautiful inhabitants that you can find here. Right next to me there's a giant sea bass, and all of these animals, oh, there it goes again. All of these animals are prey and predator. They all work together, and this is a really good representation of what you might see in the wild. So everything you see, the kelp, the algae on the walls, everything is natural, everything is real.
Awesome, Leroy. We have a scientist wondering what is your favorite animal in the kelp forest?
Oh, that is a great question. My favorite animal I think if you guys can see the giant sea bass that's up in the corner, he might swim by in just a little bit. Oh, there you see his head poking out. Believe it or not, he is just a teenager. He's about 15 years old and weighs about 80 pounds. In the wild, they can grow about 75 years old and over 600 pounds. So, really, kind of an endangered animal. So, we're really fortunate to have him here on exhibit to really show to everyone really the amazing animals that we can actually see in the wild.
Awesome. So I can't believe that huge giant sea bass right now is only a juvenile. So it's probably going to get way huger than that if it's still not a full grown adult yet. Awesome. So I think what some have compared the size of a full grown giant sea bass. If you are familiar with the punch buggies or the Volkswagens, they get about that big, over 500 pounds. So they are really beautiful, big giant sea bass. And that was one of the reasons that they became endangered. We unfortunately overfished them, meaning we took so much of them out of the ocean that there wasn't enough time for them to reproduce and replenish their population. So that is why we have those amazing policies in place, like the Endangered Species Act, to keep these animals protected. So it's really awesome that you all get to check out one of the rarer animals along our coast. Awesome. So let's see. We also have some questions a little bit more about the kelp. So if we follow the kelp all the way down to the bottom where there's rocks, one of our scientists has noticed a structure that kind of looks like roots. Is that a true root?
Yeah, absolutely. So kelp, even though it looks very similar to a plant you might find in the forest, in that it has what looks like leaves, these are called blades. The stem, the trunk is called the stipe, and they have these little air bladders that actually lift the whole plant up to the sunlight, which it needs to grow. And then on the bottom, what look like roots are actually called a holdfast. And that allows the kelp to hold on to the substrate and keep it from getting washed away. And algae, it actually absorbs nutrients through its entire body. So it needs constant water movement to absorb nutrients. And that's why you see what looks like a surge water movement in here. We actually generate that to allow this kelp to naturally grow. And it can grow about 3 feet per day in really good sunny conditions. So very fast growing, and again, home to many, many different animals.
Awesome. Well, that was great to hear your anatomy description of the kelp that we have here. So, kelp is very important because it not only provides a home for all of these beautiful animals, it's also a food source for a lot of different organisms living in here. And it is also a great place to be for young animals, kind of like a nursery. It's great protection from them. And algae also produces the oxygen that we are breathing today. So, not only do plants on land give us oxygen, but the algae and the phytoplankton in the ocean produces a lot of that oxygen as well. Now, Leroy, I couldn't help but notice you've got some sharks swimming right behind you. And one of our scientists, I think it was our horn shark, was wondering, what do the sharks eat in here?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, we are one of the few exhibits in the world that actually have predators and prey together in the same exhibit. So it really gives you a good sense of what you might see in the wild. Now, do we want to make sure that our animals stay healthy and well fed? So we provide all of our animals with restaurant quality seafood that we buy from a seafood supplier, and we feed them about 3 to 4 times per week. Now, our horn sharks, you can see them swimming along the bottom. They like to eat crustaceans like shrimp, crab, little pieces of fish or snails. So, great, cute little scavengers.
Yeah, so from what Leroy was saying, we have two species of shark inside here. The horn shark, that is known because there's a horn right on the top of its dorsal fin. And we also have another shark inside here that if you saw earlier, it kind of nuzzled against Leroy, and that is our leopard shark. And so, unfortunately, we have a negative perception of sharks, right? Most of us are scared of sharks because we're afraid they might attack us and eat us. And Leroy, is there anything you'd like to say about why sharks are important or why we should be more accepting of who they are?
Absolutely. So when many of us think about sharks, we think about scary movies like Jaws, and they really gave sharks a bad reputation. But as you guys can see, we have two types of sharks swimming right by me. They're not scary at all. They're not out to get people. And they're actually a very, very important part of our ecosystem to make sure that our ecosystem stays healthy. So, definitely not something to be afraid of. And if anything, I am the most dangerous predator inside this exhibit right now. So, our leopard sharks, our horn sharks, very important to our ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation, Leroy. Hopefully, we can all start to change our minds and perceptions about our sharks because they are very important apex predators. They help to keep the balance in the oceans. And without that, we would not have the balance we have today. And unfortunately, that's what we're starting to see because we are overhunting our sharks in the ocean. Now, with that, though, Leroy, we couldn't help but notice that there is another scuba diver swimming back and forth behind you. Could you tell us a little bit about what your partner is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the number one rule of scuba diving is that you never want to scuba dive by yourself. So, I have my dive buddy Andrew right behind here, and he's just here to make sure that I am safe. That if I ever get in trouble, or he's here to give me a helping hand. And every time you go exploring the forest or underwater, it's always fun to share that with someone else. So that is what my dive buddy Andrew is here for.
Awesome. Now, Leroy, me and you are able to talk because of this high-tech equipment we're using. But I'm assuming when you're out in the ocean, you're not carrying this kind of technological equipment that allows me to communicate to you. So how do you communicate to your other scuba diver while you're underwater?
That is a great question, Ashley. So right now, I'm wearing a special mask, which allows my mouth to be completely dry. It has a microphone inside, and I have an earphone to allow me to hear what Ashley is saying. I can talk back and forth to her through this yellow cable, not sure if you can see it. So this is special equipment that we use during our shows to talk to people. If I were just to go and swim in the ocean, scuba dive, I would only be able to communicate to my dive buddy using hand signals. So some hand signals are okay, not okay, I'm going up, I'm going down. So only hand signals.
Awesome. And you know, one of my favorite hand signals is that message for shark. That's really awesome. And you know, I just learned recently for the American Sign Language that this is also how you say shark in sign language, as well as this option as well. Now, Leroy, you are being really awesome, and you're kind of just staying in place. And I couldn't help but notice your partner behind you also is kind of just staying in that one spot. How are you able to do that?
That is one of the amazing parts of being a scuba diver, and that is to experience what we call neutral buoyancy. So, we're not positively buoyant, we're not negatively buoyant, we're just right perfect. And the way we do that is how a lot of our fish also stay neutrally buoyant. And fish have an air bladder inside them, which is a little pocket of air, which they can fill with air or let a little bit out, which allows them to hover effortlessly. I also have a vest on me that I can inflate with air, or I can let some air out, and that allows me to sink or float. And the goal is to just get it right, or I can effortlessly float.
Awesome. And I've heard sometimes you also need a weight belt around your body as well. Does that help with keeping your buoyancy underwater?
Absolutely, actually. So, uh, another piece of equipment that I have to keep me warm is this black wetsuit. And it is made out of neoprene, which is a type of rubber, and it's very positively buoyant. It's very floaty. So to offset that, I need a weight belt. I have about 20 pounds of lead around my waist. That counteracts the positive buoyancy of my wetsuit, and then the 20 pounds of negative buoyancy of my weight belt evens out and allows me, with a small adjustment of my buoyancy compensating vest, to achieve that nice neutral buoyancy, which also a lot of the fish are achieving, as well as my dive buddy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that explanation, Leroy. Now, we've been talking about some of the equipment you're wearing, but I'm kind of curious, how does it feel right now to be underwater in this kelp forest?
It feels pretty amazing, actually. I mean, I'm looking around. I am surrounded by beautiful kelp, many different species of fish like the leopard sharks, the giant sea bass, and being a scuba diver is the closest thing to being weightless and being in outer space. And actually, astronauts, part of their training to be able to experience weightlessness is actually by becoming a scuba diver.
Awesome. I didn't know that. That's really cool. So astronauts have to get trained. They have to become certified divers and get that experience of being weightlessness so that when they do go up to space, they can adapt and already know what to expect. That's really awesome. So I'm wondering, Leroy, since you have that air cylinder, how long exactly can you last underwater?
That is a great question. So it depends, but on average, about 45 minutes. So if everyone can see the scuba tank on my back, what we did is we got about 100 cubic feet of air, and using a compressor, we squeezed the air inside of my scuba tank. And it's pressurized, and it allows me to take the air down with me. And then every time I take a breath, my regulator allows me to take small parts of that air, breathe it in, and then when I exhale, that's all those bubbles that you see going to the surface. So, and then I have my pressure gauge here, allows me to keep a good eye on how much air I have left. And I still got about 35 more minutes.
Awesome. I'm glad it comes with that gauge because I'm pretty sure if I was underwater, I would totally get distracted through all the beautiful animals and the environment. So that's pretty handy they came up with that. So you can make sure how long you have left. Now, Leroy, one of our scientists has spotted some orange fish around your fin area, kind of by the rock with red algae growing on it. Oh, they just disappeared right now. But can you tell us a little bit about the orange fish?
Absolutely, guys. So that fish is called a Garibaldi. It is the California state marine fish, and it's a beautiful orange fish. The males are really cool because they build a nest out of algae, and they keep it nice and clean and make sure that there's no seashells or any dirt in there. And it attracts females who lay eggs, and then the males guard the nest and guard the eggs until the eggs are ready to hatch. And what they can do to fend off other fish or even other divers that get too close to their nest is they can make this popping sound using their internal bone structure, and they can use that to scare away other predators or a big scuba diver that might come too close. So they're one of my favorite fish and very beautiful.
Awesome. And I know a lot of you might be wondering, how old exactly are all these different animals? Well, it's pretty hard to tell how old the animals are. But what we can do is we actually have visual references for when animals are juvenile or when they're an adult. So this Garibaldi that you see right now, we know for sure that it is an adult because it doesn't have the blue spots that a juvenile would have. So all the Garibaldi you see swimming around Leroy right now are all adults. What we can do is once the fish passes away, we can actually look at its ear bone, kind of like what we do with tree rings, and we can count that to get an exact age on the fish. And Leroy, going back to your equipment that you're wearing, one of our scientists was wondering how many pounds in total do you have on your body right now?
I have about 70 pounds of equipment total, which when you carry it on land, my scuba gear, my 20 pounds of lead, my rubber suit all weighs about 70 pounds. So it can be pretty heavy on land, but the wonderful thing is that as soon as I step into the ocean, into the water, I'm completely weightless, and it's almost like you're flying. So just heavy for a little bit, and then it's weightless.
Awesome. So you just have to make it into the water itself, and then you're pretty good. I can't imagine. I don't think I could carry that much. I think I'd have to work out to get to that point. So, Leroy, before we run out of time, there is another fish that we haven't talked about that is my personal favorite fish, and that is the halibut. Would you mind telling our audience a little bit about our halibut?
Yeah, absolutely. Not sure if you guys can see the halibut, but the halibut is a big fish. He's completely flat, and he likes to lay in the sand. Oh, there's a leopard shark coming to check me out. They're really curious, but again, not a threat to me at all.
Oh, they want to steal the show today.
Yeah, I think he does. Sharks, they have these sensors on their snout which allows them to detect electromagnetic pulses of fish hiding underneath the sand. So oftentimes they pick up the signal of my watch, and it just gets them curious on what's going on. So, really curious. But back to the halibut, there's a fish that's flat, lays in the sand, and he waits for some food to swim by. He's born as a normal fish, and then as he gets older, one eye will move from one side of its head to the other side of its body. So now he has two eyes on one side, which allows him to lay on his side, lay completely flat on his side, and still be able to see with both eyes until the prey comes by. Really cool fish if you guys get the chance to come by and check them out.
Awesome. Thank you, Leroy, for talking about my favorite fish, the halibut. So it is a great ambush predator. It buries itself in the sand. Can you take a look at the picture right below me? It blends in so beautifully. It's a great camouflager. And once prey swims by, it ambushes and eats it right up. Now, Leroy, we have time for one last question before we have to tell our viewers goodbye. One of our scientists was wondering, how do you become scuba certified?
Oh, that is a great question. And the wonderful thing is that scuba diving is such a popular, such a fun, it's such a safe sport nowadays that you can learn to scuba dive almost anywhere. So, and almost anywhere in the world, there's a scuba shop, a dive shop, and you can go and get trained. The minimum age is 12 years old, and then you go and take a class, and then you can go and become a scuba diver. And once you get your certification, you can go anywhere in the world, rent some equipment, and go explore and scuba dive. So, very fun, very safe, and it allows you to explore a whole new underwater planet. So, I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Leroy, for telling us how we can become scuba certified. So you just have to do a quick Google search on your phone and see where the nearest scuba diving shop is, and then you can contact them, and they can let you know how the classes, how much the classes are going to be, and how the training is going to go. And so they would have a better idea of how they're going to certify people during this pandemic. Now, I would love to thank you, Leroy, so much for getting into this nice. I forgot to ask you, Leroy, is this water cold or warm?
It is pretty chilly, guys. It's about 60 degrees, so I'm a little chilly, but I have my wetsuit, which keeps me warm.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cold. I am so thankful I am dry on land right here. But thank you for getting into this water for us today, and your partner as well.
Thank you guys for joining us. It was really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, so if you would like to come and visit us and check out this kelp forest in person, you can head on to our website at californiasciencecenter.org. And if you click on that tab where it says visit, you can get all the information you need to visit us. So because of the pandemic, we are following state guidelines in limiting our capacity within our museum so that you are safe and our lovely staff here are safe as well. And so we are actually have been reopened starting today. And so hopefully you can come join us and check out our website, see how that works. We have a video that gives you a good glimpse into what you can expect when you come and visit us. And it also lets you know what exactly you can find here in our museum. And before I turn us back, I just wanted to switch us back to our beautiful kelp forest here and say one more thing about our beautiful kelp forest. This window is about 24 feet tall, and I think it's about 188,000 gallons of water. But I think we forgot to mention what kind of water is this, Leroy?
Absolutely. So, even though we are in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, we actually truck in water every single week directly from the ocean, salt water from the ocean, to make sure that the kelp, the fish, the algae all have the proper nutrients and chemical structure in the water that they need to really thrive and be their best.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thanks for all the wonderful questions you provided for us. And thank you, Leroy, for getting in this water today. We hope you enjoy the rest of your beautiful Saturday today. It's great weather out there today. Enjoy your Saturday. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good one.